Hi guys. Happy first live of 2024. Here comes the part I hate the most. Seeing if I can get Dr. Fratantoni on. Let me see. Hope everyone's having a good evening. Let's see. Happy New Year, everyone. I feel like it's been forever. My mom is trying to join. I don't think she meant to do that. Let's see. I'm so excited that Dr. Julie can join us this evening. For those that don't know her, she is a cognitive neuroscientist at the UT Center for Brain Health in Dallas. And she's, let's see why it's not coming through. Give it 1 second. She's super fantastic at distilling down brain health information and brain health habits into easily digestible and understandable. Oh, here we go. Hold on. Let's see. It said accept. One more time. Of course, it's going to give me a hard time today. I'll try one more time. Julie, I'm going to try inviting you because for some reason it won't let me accept. There you are! I have a whole montage of all the lives I did last year where when they finally get on, I'm like,
I know it's stressful because you're like, I'm on.
I see you. I see you. I'm like accepting. Hi,
yeah.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. It's great to see you.
Great to see you. I was just thinking the last time I saw you, we were at, Julie did an event that I produced in Austin, Texas. I don't even think you and I spoke for more than like 3 seconds. I was running around.
You were doing everything and it was such an incredible event. It was
so fun, but I did not stop moving for like 6 hours. I barely even got to see you. So thank you again for doing that event. And thank you for being with us tonight. I was just saying that you are a cognitive neuroscientist at the Center for Brain Health in Dallas, UT Dallas, right?
Yes.
Did I right? Okay. Got it. And one of the things I love about you is that you make brain health habits very easy for people to understand. You distill it down on your Instagram channel. As someone who's been in the brain health space for 10 years working, and now as somebody with Parkinson's, it can be overwhelming, the idea of brain health and the idea sort of what we can and cannot do for our brain. So I just love how you make it really digestible, really easy to understand. And what I asked Julie to join us with tonight is to talk a little bit about, it's the new year. Some of us, if you saw my story this morning, had an Oreo for breakfast, have fallen off the brain health wagon. So I thought we could just talk a little bit about simple things people can be doing at the start of the year to take their brain health sort of in the right direction. Are there like things that you would say you have to do right now other than stop eating Oreos for breakfast?
Well, I would say everything in moderation, and you've got to enjoy your life. That's a huge part of it. So you could be following a perfectly regimented, according to science, everything you should be doing right. But if you're miserable, then that's going to be bad for your brain health. So just want to encourage everyone.
I like that. I like that.
Yeah, you've got to have, enjoyment and fun. And so, yeah, we can dive right in. I love that you brought it up. Just this idea that it can be overwhelming. We did a national survey recently and found that, 90% of people know that there's things that they can do, or they know that they can improve their brain. But about 75% of people don't know where to start. And so I think that's kind of a lot of the why behind the content that I'm putting out is just trying to give people a simple place to start to help really distill it down to something that is just actionable daily in a small way, that you don't have to rearrange your whole life or add more to your schedule, but it's just about kind of tweaking and approaching things in a slightly different way.
And I think part of that is because we didn't learn about, you're younger than I am, but we didn't learn about brain health as sort of a fundamental part of health as part of overall taking care of ourselves when we were little. It was just not, it was sort of like, there's nothing you can do for your brain. So I'm not at all surprised to hear that 75% of people find it overwhelming.
Well, yeah. And that's, we just I'm trying to change the conversation around that so people understand, you know, research in the last several decades has advanced so much when it comes to neuroplasticity and things that you can do. And it's definitely this notion that you're born with what you've got and it's fixed. And, you know, if you lose brain cells, too bad, like that's all you've got. That's not the case. We can make, you know, new neurons, all the time. So it's a beautiful thing. And yeah, I'm excited to share some practical tips.
So tell us, if you had to pick like the most important things that we could be doing right now, what would they be?
Oh gosh, it's hard because I feel like whichever topic I'm talking about, I'm like, that's the most, like, I'm like, sleep. Oh, that's the most important one. And then I'm like, oh no, exercise. That's the most important. Like, oh no, social connection. And then it's like, oh, about how you use your brain and engage with it and different things. So we can get into that. But I think from like a fundamental standpoint, you know, sleep, exercise, and nutrition are going to be foundational. I think you could do deep dives into all of those, but I would just say for basics, like, you know, if you want to improve your sleep or you're aware that you're someone that, you know, routinely, like it's easy to just stay up late, and whether it's Netflix or you're scrolling or you're working or you just have stuff going on in your life and you're up late, like what can you do? And so it's really, I know this is really hard, but having that consistent bedtime and wake up time is so important. But on a more practical level, because I know that life is life. And so really thinking just consistency is better. So it's like, rather than like, if you're getting 5 to 6 hours every night during the week and then really oversleeping on the weekends, it's like, what can you do to kind of like help even that out just a little bit? So, and then I think one other, like the concrete tip here would be, thinking about that wind down routine. So we use an alarm to wake up in the morning. I would actually flip that and say, use an alarm to tell you when to go to bed.
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah, I like that.
And if you do like bedtime on your iPhone, or if you have an Oura ring, like it'll ping you and be like, time to start winding down.
And I usually, I usually just swipe.
Completely ignore. So to just, I'd be like, thanks, but no thanks.
Yeah, thanks.
But having a wind down that you actually look forward to and you really enjoy, whether that's reading, taking a bath or a hot shower, journaling, listening to music, like doing things that are going to help to activate your parasympathetic nervous system. That's your rest and digest mode. You know, when we're busy all day long and sympathetic, kind of preparing the body for action, it becomes then really hard to sleep and affects the quality of sleep. So just paying attention to the things you're doing before bed. So maybe don't watch the really scary movie or really violent action, you know, whatever it is, that matters.
Yeah. I mean, and people with Parkinson's typically have trouble sleeping. And I know a lot of people who are watching also have it or know somebody who has it. So one of the things that I really struggle with is the anxiety around not being able to sleep. It's almost like a self-perpetuating problem. It's like the more I think about the fact that I'm not going to be able to sleep, the more I don't sleep. And so I like the idea of, I mean, I feel like I've tried all of the things. It doesn't always work for me. And I think, you know, my brain is just going to be that way for the rest of my life. But
what are the things that are most helpful for you when you like want?
Nothing, nothing, Julie, nothing. You know, I try really hard to, and I know better because like I said, I've been in this space for a long time. So I know what you're supposed to do, which is cold, dark rooms and consistent bedtime and no blue light and no phone and all of that stuff. For me, the more I try to do those things, the more stressed out it makes me. It almost feels like that routine winds me up to being like, I'm not gonna be able to sleep. I'm not gonna be able to sleep. Yeah. So for me, if I'm like in the middle of the night and I'm wide awake, I have to get up and go somewhere else, or I hate to say it, but get on my phone, because the longer I lie there in the dark, listening to my husband sleep, the more anxious it makes me. He's like a champion sleeper. So that just makes it worse for me. So I've learned that like I have to get up and go somewhere else, and then I can come back and hopefully fall back to sleep. But it's tough. It's tough. Sleep is like the one thing that I really struggle with. So
yeah, well, I think a lot of people do. And I think we definitely agree with the recommendation that if it's been, 20 plus minutes and you're lying there just awake, definitely get up and get out of bed, because you can train that association of like, if the longer you're awake in your bed, it's like, then you're learning, oh, I'm awake here, right? And then your brain starts to associate that with that rather than sleeping. So definitely keep the lights low and try to do something that's sort of read a really boring book.
Yeah. For me, it's usually like Well, I try not to just scroll mindlessly. Like if I can put on a show, if if it wouldn't have woken up my husband, I would put on a TV show, and that usually puts me right to sleep. But that's a problem.
Yeah.
So anyway, not
Yeah.
all about me. But yeah, I think sleep is one thing that we continue to work on. So other than the Oreos.
Yeah. That's okay, let's talk a little bit about how people use their brain day to day. I think it's something that doesn't get as much attention as, say, things like sleep or
Yeah.
exercise, even though those things are really foundational. But I think a lot of the time, we, in the same way that you mentioned that we don't ever really learn about our brain, or that wasn't kind of part of core education. I think now, I saw the other day, there's a school that's heavily, it's like a preschool, but they're learning about the limbic system,
Oh,
and they're like getting, they're, I'm like, this is amazing. I'm
that
so
is amazing.
excited. Yeah, how these kids will be equipped. But anyway, so a lot of the time I think we just kind of, all this information is coming at us. We're in this digital age. There's information overload all the time. We're doing a million things at once. And so for people to think about their thinking, it's metacognition is the fancy term for that, but really important to know, you know, on the flip side, like, are you just, there's so much coming at us that it makes us more shallow thinkers, so we're not getting to engage and really think about things deeply, or it's like you're moving from one event to the next or appointment to the next, and it's like at the end of the day you're like, what even happened, what day is it, I don't
Right,
even
right.
know. It's like hard to keep track. And so a lot of times, you know, and then people get concerned about memory, and I think it's probably because you just didn't spend more time processing the information. It was because it was too quick. You moved on to the next thing. So one tip that I would give people is to, one, build in little brain break pauses for yourself if you can, just 3 to 5 minutes in between things. And then two, in that pause, so one, like taking a full brain break is really important. But the second thing would be to then actually process what happened and like think about, like, from this conversation or from this article I read or podcast I listened to or movie I watched, anytime you're engaging with anything, an event I attended, what is my one takeaway? What is kind of my personal connection to this information? Or, you know, how does this apply to my life? And when you just ask yourself that question, you'll do that extra little bit of processing. It doesn't take long, you know, just a couple minutes to think about it. And if you have one takeaway, it's great if you want to jot it down. And then you're going to, most likely, you're going to create more neural connections and you're going to remember that better. So it's going to just stick.
Love
So
that.
give
That's such
yourself
a
that
great
time.
idea. Yeah, I really like that because I we had on Dr. Lisa Genova, who I know you know, and she said the same thing. She said, like, there's just so much going in that it's no wonder people can't remember where their keys are or
Yeah.
like who they met at the grocery store. So I like the idea of like almost bookmarking it like you do like on a computer, like bookmarking that moment so that you remember it later on in the day. I think that's a
Yeah.
great tip. I need to do that.
And that's something that, you know, you don't have to do it with every single thing all day long, but the things that are important when you're like, oh, that was a really great lecture, or this was a really interesting, you know, thing I went to, or art exhibit, or whatever it is, that you want to remember. It's like, you know, take that extra couple seconds to
Seconds.
think about. So yeah, and that's something, again, a way to approach life in a slightly brain healthier way. And doing that is exercising your frontal networks, your frontal lobes. It's really, the process of kind of synthesizing and bringing together that information is a great brain exercise. So it's a good way. You get kind of the boost of hopefully locking it into memory a little bit better. And then also it's a really nice way to engage your brain, because one of the biggest enemies of brain health is just going on autopilot and just kind of through things at that surface level, because you can't take it any deeper because there's too much coming at you. So really learning how to
And I
prioritize
think that
that.
kind of, you know, I know you've talked about this. I've seen some of your posts, and lots of neurologists and neuroscientists talk about using your brain in new ways, especially as you get older and not sort of going on autopilot. And you can do that by, you know, learning a new language or engaging in a musical talent or whatever. And I think those are lofty ambitions. You know, the idea of learning a new language, you know, at my age or older seems like, oh God, that's just another thing I have to add to do my on my to-do list. But like even just little things like that, like making those connections, I think is a good place to start, because again, it can feel
Yeah.
overwhelming.
Yes, and I love that you brought that up, because everyone is like, "Oh, should I learn a musical instrument? Do I need to learn?" And it's like, only if you want to. I mean,
Yeah.
that's
Only if it's
not,
enjoyable.
yeah,
You're
that's
like slogging through violin lessons at 70. That's
no.
not helpful.
If it's
Yeah.
burdensome, and that's not, that only adds to stress. And we know stress is a huge contributor of
Yeah.
cognitive decline. So I think, yeah, it's like new learning is great, but it's got to be something you're passionate about, you're curious about, and that learning doesn't need to be, I signed up and took, an entire class on it. It can literally just be like, I watched a 5-minute YouTube video,
Right.
or I'm curious and had a conversation with someone and asked them questions. That, novelty really sparks norepinephrine and a really nice chemical cocktail of neurotransmitters that is neuroprotective. So, they always say never stop learning, but we're learning, it could be learning a new dance move. It could be learning a yoga pose. It can be, there's all different
And
modalities
I,
and
I
ways
think
to.
that is like the key takeaway. Like I think for people who are watching or who watch this later, like little bits, like a new dance move, a YouTube video on learning how to, put an IKEA thing together or whatever it is, something that just challenges your brain in a different way than you use it all day long is compoundingly, I would hope, good for your brain. The
Yeah.
more you do of those little things, the better and better it will be for your neuroplasticity. So I like that. I'm gonna try and do that. Little tiny bits all day
Yeah.
long.
We work with someone named Bonnie Pittman, and she actually got diagnosed. She's dealt with a really rare chronic illness. And her way of really coping with that and becoming more resilient was she started something called Do Something New. And so every single day she does something new, and she's been logging it for now. She's at like day, I don't know, 6, like
Yeah. Many, day
thousand,
many.
like, yeah, like she's been documenting it on Instagram. But yeah, it's the curiosity, it's the novelty, and for her that's really inspired a lot of hope and something to look forward to. And it's like, what's her new thing that she's going to do? And new flavors of ice cream count as doing
Oh my
something
God, I
new.
love
So
that. That's amazing. I'm gonna look her up. That's
yeah,
so great. Such a great
yeah.
idea. Okay, so focused on sleep if we can make it happen, learning new things every day, making those good neuron connections. What else would you say?
Uh,
I think obviously exercise is going to be up there, right?
yeah, guys, and this is another one that I think can feel overwhelming, like, oh my gosh, I've got to join a gym, or I need to invest all this time and I don't have time. And that's the biggest, I think, thing that gets in the way of people moving their body. And so this is, again, a small on-ramp is like a 10-minute walk after dinner, or during your lunch break, or like, it's like taking the stairs, it's gardening, whatever, moving around, doing housework counts.
Yeah.
But I would say one habit that I would encourage anyone and everyone to do, and almost anyone and everyone can do it, is to take just a 10-minute walk every day, and building that, like, that is good on so many different levels. And bonus points if you can do that walk with a friend, and if you can't do it physically, like with them, then maybe talking on the phone, so that you're getting the double whammy of like social connection, social support, it acts as stress relief, and then you're moving your body. And I also learned recently that pairing physical activity with something more cognitively stimulating exercise, like talking to someone, is actually a really, really
Yeah.
powerful combination.
I started doing Parkinson's physical therapy, which I always get wrong. LSVT. I think that's how it goes. Sometimes I get LVST anyway. And one of the things that they taught me was if you go for a walk and you're alone and you don't have anyone to chat with on the phone or whatever, you can name every vegetable you can think of in a certain category, or you can name every fruit that begins with the letter whatever, pick a letter, or count backwards by a certain denomination, which is super challenging for me. And so she gave me a whole bunch of like little tests that day, and she was like, okay, name every food you had at Thanksgiving last year. And I had to like walk and think as I was doing it. And it makes it that much more, challenging than just like listening to, music or whatever. So
Oh, that's good. I love that.
yeah, it was good. It was hard. Whenever someone says to count backwards by like sevens or something like that,
Oh,
I freeze.
I'm out on that.
I'm out
So fast.
93 and then
Yeah.
I'm done. I'm done. So
Oh, that's,
exercise, definitely, even if it's just a starting in the smallest ways. Are there exercises, I already know the answer to this, but are there exercises that are better for brain health than others?
I feel like this comes up all the time because people are like, what's the best bang for my buck? And like, honestly, walking has so many benefits. And I've seen so many studies about just truly walking. And so I think like you just need to get up and move. I know there's tremendous benefits to building muscle, strength training. Hypertrophy is really helpful long-term for brain health, especially. I thought this was interesting that when you, like your balance or like your fall risk factor is a huge indication. I'm sorry, my dog is like making all kinds of noises over here. He's like rolling around.
I cannot believe that my dog isn't freaking out at this moment. Like everybody who watches this channel knows Bean is a nightmare.
I tried to give him like a special bone and now he's like knocking over my leg. Yeah, just give me a second.
Okay. No, you're good.
Okay.
What kind of dog is it?
He is a German Shepherd mix, German Aussie mix. So, and now let's turn that down. Okay. Thank you. He's literally like, yeah, being the worst right now.
He's cute.
I wish y'all could see him. Okay, what were we talking about? Oh, the benefits. Yeah. So strength training, and then obviously like zone 2 cardio, you hear a lot about that. But I think it's so dependent. Every individual varies so much in terms of like your level. And I think another thing to consider with physical exercise is your stress levels. Like if you're not recovering well, or if you're really tired, or you're not sleeping enough, or getting adequate nutrition, like if your body's not able to repair, then it's not helpful to like break things down more. So that's why I like walking, because I'm like, that's something that is like beneficial. It's not going to be something that will, like wear down your joints or it doesn't need to be something crazy intense. You just need to move.
You don't have to join CrossFit or
exactly.
you don't have to go try and run a Disney marathon and then break. Yeah.
Or you can.
You can. So I guess that sort of leaves the biggest one, or one of the bigger ones, which is nutrition, obviously, and how important that is. And as somebody who, really didn't pay too close attention to brain healthy food and nutrition for most of my life, it's been a real shift for me, and a change over I would say, probably the last 5 or 6 years. Even before I was diagnosed with Parkinson's, we sort of shifted our diet away from the heavier foods, the tons of carbs. We sort of existed on carbs, as sometimes people with younger kids do. I feel like I ate a lot of my kids' mac and cheese and stuff. And we've sort of shifted away from that. Obviously, I still struggle with the sugar addiction, but what sort of, again, if we were going to break it down into easy sort of to digest, no pun intended, ways to get started in nutrition, what would you suggest?
Yeah, I think one maybe manageable goal for a year, if you're kind of still in that New Year's mindset, would just be to reduce or kind of minimize one fast food meal a week. Just one a week, just aiming to do that. You can decrease your risk of cognitive decline, I think by like 17%, I think was what a paper found. So truly just like, it can be as little as that, of like, just, you're going to bring your lunch that day or pack it. So just thinking about reducing the amount of fast food, highly processed foods, and fried food. And so if you can kind of just one less meal of that a week, I think is a really doable place to start. I think knowing that, it's just as much about what you're not eating as what you are eating. So avoiding those things. And as you said, like sugar is such, it's so addicting in everything, and you really have to work hard to avoid it, because it truly, like, it's in ketchup, it's in like
it's everywhere, literally. And I know when I have fallen off the wagon, because I'll do so well on so many other fronts, and the exercise piece for me is probably the of these the easiest one for me to tackle. And when I eat sugar, I feel terrible. Like, it doesn't feel good. So I know it's not good for my brain. I know it's not good for my body. It's just like, it just calls to you. And it's like when you're stressed, it's like the easiest thing to go to. We really try hard not to keep it in our house. My husband, I credit my husband for that, because he just didn't grow up with a lot of sweets. Nor did I, but it's just something that, you cave to the craving. And
I know it's there's a professor, Selena Bartlett, she's down in Australia actually now, but a lot of her work, she looked at addiction pathways and how sugar falls on some of the same addiction pathways as alcohol and nicotine, and it is truly just as addicting. And her stance on it, which I think is so interesting, she kind of talks about it as with that addiction is like addiction is a way to manage stress. So it's like uncomfortable feelings or stress, like this relieves it. And so really, I think when it comes to, I mean, I know getting into diet and this and that is a whole thing. There's so much to it. I don't want to try to pretend to simplify it, but I will say that, you know, thinking about like if sugar is a go-to when you're stressed, it's like thinking about like, okay, how can I relieve that stress in a way that is going to make me feel better, best long term, because it's a quick fix, but then like you said, you feel terrible.
Oh, it feels terrible. Yeah.
I thought that was an interesting thing of it's not just about like food and I'm hungry. It's like, oh, this is a way of coping with stress. And so when I thought about it that way, it was like, oh, okay, so like instead, like I could breathe, or I could take a walk, or I could call a friend, or, you know, kind of having some other go-tos there.
Or just eat something like that. For me, it's like sometimes it's just, as you said, like a stress reliever, a comfort food thing, or it's just simply there and I don't even think about it. You know what I mean? Which is part of the reason we just really try hard not to keep it in the house. And, you know, as someone living with a neurodegenerative disease, like I feel like I have done so well to like get myself on track. It's just that one last little piece. Right. It's amazing what happens when you are diagnosed with something like this. It's sort of like it's in the ethereal, or it's like in the like, oh yeah, I need to do those things. It's on your to-do list. And then when you get diagnosed, you're like, oh, like I got to do it now. I got to get my stuff together, save whatever dopamine I have left in my brain. And so, you know, I feel like I've done so much in the right direction. So I just gotta, break that one little habit.
What were some of the biggest shifts, or like food, like with your
question? Definitely the exercise for me. I'd always sort of been an active person. I ran a marathon of like 100 years ago. But, you know, having kids, I really fell off the exercise wagon. I just did not prioritize my own health in any way. And not that it's not that I'm blaming it on having kids, but I was just, you know, I was working full time, had kids, was just trying to juggle 100 things. And so prioritizing exercise for sure, and healthy eating. I mean, we really have shifted. Almost everything we eat has changed. We don't eat pasta really at all anymore. Not to say any of these are bad. I know there's really not, other than highly processed fast food. I don't think there's any bad food, but we just were sort of, that was our go-to for many, many years. So we cut that. We cut a lot of, you know, white starchy bread, sort of all of the above. So we're not perfect. We definitely order out a lot of Chipotle, teenagers. So we could be better, but yeah, really focusing on that. And then the sleep thing I know is just a huge piece of the puzzle for me. And so that I have not succeeded in yet, but I'm working on it. I'm working on it for sure.
little bits at a time. And it's not about perfection. I mean, we're humans and we live life. And so it's just like finding things that, like you said, are sustainable. Like what's a goal that, you know, I can aim for this.
Yeah. And I would say the other huge piece of it for me was stress reduction. You know, I, like all of us, was exceptionally stressed in COVID times. And that's when my symptoms started. Actually, looking back, my symptoms actually started in 2018. It was the first time I had mentioned them to a doctor, which I completely forgot until I was in my portal a couple months ago and went back to like find something in my prescription history. And I mentioned to my endocrinologist that I had a tremor. And I literally don't even remember telling him that. And that was 2018. So yeah, by 2020, they were consistent. And that's when I was, well, actually I wasn't diagnosed until 2022. So it took 2 full years of tests and MRIs and CAT scans, and then eventually a DAT scan to confirm it. But that time frame, that COVID sort of year, was just, I was working way too much. I was stressed about life. I was stressed about the kids. I was stressed about everything, finances. And so reducing stress and working less has sort of been a huge shift for me too. Definitely. So working on that too.
Yeah. I'll give another tip, which would be, and I think I like to give things that can be done in 5 minutes, because I think, you know, if prioritizing brain health is a goal that someone has, and it's like, can you carve out 5 minutes a day for it? I feel like that's like,
Yeah.
if you can't, then it's okay, then it's not really a priority or a goal. Or like,
Right. Right. It's only
I
5 minutes.
even
Yeah.
the busiest person in the world, if something's important to them, they can make 5 minutes for
Yeah.
it. And you really do have to make the 5 minutes. It's not going to just happen. You have to think about when you're going to do it and kind of block it off. And yeah, that small consistency over time will pay off. But yeah, in terms of stress relief, have you gotten into breath work or any, like, I feel like that's like one of those that people like roll their eyes at because
No,
everyone's like, oh,
no,
meditation, mindfulness. But
no.
that
Yeah.
one is so, like, breathing is like such a quick, like, immediate response that you can really change your brain chemistry in real time. And
Yeah.
it's
I,
such a great tool.
I tried. I definitely tried. I have a colleague at HFC, Alex, shout out to Alex if she's watching, who keeps sending me mindful apps and things to try. She's really great at it. And I seem to like get into the habit of it and then forget or just I haven't prioritized it. I do have a couple of apps that we use, like there's meditation on the Peloton app, so we do some of those. I'm not consistent with it. I definitely aim to be, or maybe that will be my goal for brain health for this month or this year. I find if it's anything longer than like 5 minutes that I'm just completely zoned out, which my understanding is, and tell me if I'm wrong, but even like zoned out meditation is better than no meditation. Like I think even if you're like desperately trying to like focus your brain on what you're listening to, but it keeps like veering off to your like grocery list, it's still probably better than not meditating at all. But I find my brain just like wandering into the
Yeah,
midst of it.
depending on the type of meditation that you're doing, I mean, I feel like that is the practice. The practice is my mind's going to wander and I'm going to bring it back.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think so that's more of like a more focused one. But if it's the purpose of it is more relaxation, like, you know, a progressive muscle relaxation, or I'm doing a body scan, or being aware, like kind of just if it's more relaxing, that's great. But if it's more like, oh, things I need to do, or like that kind of like, then maybe it's
I
not.
immediately, the minute they start like talking and like the music starts going, I'm like, I wonder what we're gonna have for dinner. Oh, we need to book our vacation. It's like this, like, and I'm then like, stop, Allie, stop. Think about something.
No.
It's just.
Oh, and then the more you try to stop it, the more like it.
Yeah, exactly. And then I'm like, focus. And then I'm like, oh, I'm not focused. And then I should be focused. Why can't I focus?
Yeah.
It's a whole spinning thing.
I think my favorite, for me, the most effective is always like counting my breaths, because it gives me something to do. So just like 4 count inhale, 6 count exhale, or like I'll be like, I have my like hand like not up like this, but I'll like have my fingers and I kind of put a finger down to do like, I'm going to do 10 breaths like that and like count them out, and just by the end of it, I'm like, oh, I feel good. I like want to keep going. But you know, maybe if you're starting, maybe you just do one hand and you do it like, I'm going to do 5 like this, and kind of just like, and you just build on it. That's something that's always really helped me to feel like I'm thinking, but I'm not thinking.
Distracting yourself by your fingers.
Yeah.
I feel like I could handle that. Stress reduction, definitely spending less time working, which I know is a privilege, and not everybody can slow down their workloads. But I also just think not stressing, and it's interesting because I've always, the last 10 years of my career, I've worked for Alzheimer's nonprofits who have like preached to us all, including to the staff, like, you know, keep stress low. So I don't blame anybody but myself. You know, I just sort of took on, I sort of became anxious about work a long time ago and just kind of kept building on it. And over the course of this last year, I've just sort of let it go. You know, I think you get a new priority when you find out you have something like Parkinson's. It's like, oh, well, this is how much time I have left, and, you know, hopefully in good health, and I'm not going to waste it being stressed about work or anything else, which is, if you had asked me before I was diagnosed if I could make that distinction, I wouldn't have been able to. But now I'm just kind of like, listen, literally life is short. So like, we got to.
That's actually one of my goals this year, is like, I'm like, I want to be able to look back at the year and think like I prioritized the right things, which to me, the right things are like the more eternal or longer lasting things, not like these fleeting things that are just don't matter. So I heard it put well, the other day I went to there was a new book tour for John Mark Comer. I don't know if you've ever read The Ruthless
I
Elimination
haven't.
of Hurry, but
I've heard of it. Yeah.
such a great book. But anyway, he has a new book out. So, but he started off by talking about like resume virtues versus eulogy virtues, and like thinking about how like we busy ourselves like building a better, you know, resume of like, oh, you know, she's got these accolades and the, you know, these achievements and whatever. And it's like nobody talks about that at your eulogy. Like they talk about, oh, she was really present with me, or she was really kind, or she, you know, took time to like help me and was generous. And like those are the things that matter. And so like long term, right? It's like no one kind of celebrates your resume. They celebrate like who you are as a person. And so I think that anyway, to what you were saying of like it puts the stress in perspective, because when I'm like, oh my gosh, this deadline, and it's like there's always going to be more work, but it's like, oh my gosh, dinner with a friend that I haven't seen in a long time, like that, you don't get more of those. So like weighing it out, and also being, you know, balancing being driven and having goals and having a career, and then also but being like, I'm a human and I need to care for not just my brain but my whole body and my soul, and you know, all of that matters.
And it's a message I try and send to my kids too now, which the damage is probably done because they're both high achieving overachievers. But you know, I think especially our age women felt like, or we're always told sort of, you can have it all, you can have it all, you can have it all. Maybe you even should have it all because you should work and you went to college and you know, don't give up your career. And it's kind of I always sort of bristled at the concept of the lean in movement, because it's sort of like implying that if you choose not to lean into your career, and I did, and many people on this call and in the world do, but like if you chose not to, that you were somehow like letting womanhood down. And I definitely felt that pressure. I felt like, oh, I need to keep going and keep going. Like I'm not going to quit because I had kids. And looking back, like I mean, I love my career so much and I love all the work that I've done, but would I trade some of that stress for, you know, good brain health? Probably. Definitely, you know. But it's hard when you're in it, you know, especially with younger kids, or when you're just starting out in your career. You want to build your resume, you want to, you know, succeed. But now as I get a little older, I'm like, oh, well, success looks different to me now. You know, success looks like the ability to go on a family vacation and not be on my phone for the first time in like as long as I can remember, or to actually tell people I'm out of office, which I used to wear it like a badge of honor that I wouldn't take time off. I'd be like, I'm always available. And now I'm like, why? Like, why did I do that to myself? You know?
Well,
so
I think that's such an important message to be sending, because I think our greater culture really, like you said, celebrates, you know, do it all. You can have it all. You should have it all. If you're not having it all, you're doing something wrong. You know, it's like there's shame around whether you choose to or not to, or do, but, and it's like, it's a lot. And so I think, sharing this message of like prioritizing yourself, your family, your health, those things, I think it's just, it is countercultural.
it is. And I think people are sort of coming into that now. There's, I hope, a shift in sort of, and I think it's in part post-COVID, when we were all forced to slow down and we saw that, like, you know, oh, like there's this beauty in not doing anything. I know it was, you know, exceptionally stressful and awful in so many ways, but like the silver lining of that time was getting up and like putting puzzles together with my kids, or like we cooked in the kitchen and they weren't running around and I saw them for solid chunks of the day. Like that was a real eye opener, in addition to sort of starting to having more and more symptoms. That time period for me was like, it was like a real eye opener for me, because especially now as my kids are, you know, my daughter's a sophomore and my son will, you know, graduate soon. It's like you only have a finite amount of time with your you know, nuclear family at home. So yeah, it's just been a shift. It's been a real shift for me. I kind of wish it happened a long time ago, maybe before I got Parkinson's, but whatever, we'll take it. We'll take it now. Better in my 40s than never, you know.
The silver lining that you're able to see that, and you have the time to make the shift and to get to soak up all those moments and really maximize.
Yeah, I heard a quote from Michael J. Fox early on when I was diagnosed that Parkinson's is a gift that keeps on taking. And I was kind of like, I didn't really understand what that meant. Now I sort of understand it. It's the gift of seeing life in a different way and like a new perspective, and being able to say, like, this is what's important to me. And again, I hope that I don't sound overly privileged on this call, because I know it's not everybody can make a shift in the ways that I have. And so I feel very lucky to have the support of my family and be able to sort of slow down. And a lot of people in this situation can't. They're single parents, or they're caring for not only their children at this point in their life, but also parents, some with, you know, dementia and other things. So I'm taking this as a real gift, and being able to just say, like, for a little while anyway, I'm going to shift and slow down. If I can just get sort of all the other pieces in place, I feel really good about where I am. But it's hard, you know, and I hope that people who are listening that maybe don't have Parkinson's or some Alzheimer's or some other disease really listen to the things that you've said, and just take the little tiny steps every day, because it is possible. I hope you'll agree with me on this, but it is possible to keep yourself from getting a disease like Parkinson's or Alzheimer's. Like, there is, I mean, I did not have the genetic markers. I don't have the genetic markers. So somewhere in my life, this came into my brain, you know, and so if you can do any of these things to stop yourself from getting a disease like this, like, people should, right? Like, it's possible, hopefully,
Yeah,
to
I would say we obviously cannot like 100% guarantee prevention, but we do know that there are tons of modifiable risk factors, like the things we talked about in terms of diet, exercise, sleep, you know, stress management, social connection, things that like you very much have agency over in your life, that you can choose to make small little shifts in, that will make a big difference over time. So absolutely, you know, it's never too early or too late to start thinking about your brain health or to start taking small steps. And so, yeah, I would challenge everyone that's listening or watching to think about what is 5 minutes that you can spend towards your brain health. And that could be a 5-minute walk. It could be 5 minutes of breath work. It could be, you know, going to sleep 5 minutes earlier, whatever. But like, truly, yeah, thinking about what that looks like for you, and then you just start to build on it. And it's kind of a self-reinforcing cycle, because you'll do it and you'll feel better, or you'll feel less stressed or more rested, or, you know, and then you'll want to keep doing it. You'll see the benefits.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I could talk to you for hours and hours and hours. We should do this again. Maybe we'll check in at like the 6-month mark and see how everybody's doing on their
Yeah, once we
habits. See if any of those have cut out more sugar out of their life. But I really appreciate it. And I'm going to put this on my page and on the website so people can see it, and they can find you. What's your Instagram handle?
at Dr. Julie Fratantoni.
Easy peasy, and they can ask you questions. And like I said, Julie's account is filled with easy to read, easy to do, easy to accomplish little things that you can make your brain health better. So thank you for joining us. Happy New Year. Happy New-ish year.
This was so much fun, and
super
everyone for
yeah, thanks. All right, bye.